Hello, Gemini, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. So this reading will be for Gemini Sun, Moon, and Rising. And by all means, if you know your major 3 placements, you can feel free to listen to any and all readings that apply, as each one may resonate for you differently. And do keep in mind, these readings are general in nature, so not necessarily all of the details that come through will make sense for you, as they're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals. So definitely take anything and everything that does resonate for you, however that makes sense to your specific situation and whatever that may connect to in your personal circumstances. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and you can simply leave the rest. So Gemini, I hope you're doing well. I hope June was good to you. I'm very excited to dive into the month of July and to see what might be coming up for you. So as always, before we get into your oracle and tarot cards, I am going to kick off the reading by sharing with you my channeled energetic impression and channeled messages. And so we'll cover that first, and then we'll get into your cards. So the one thing that really stood out when I was preparing for your reading and kind of connecting to your energy, it was almost like having an abundance of thoughts, maybe like an overabundance of thoughts. So like a lot going on in your mind, and it's kind of the sense of having a cluttered mind. And I can almost liken it to like an internet browser just having like way too many tabs open to the point where it's like you don't know what each tab is, and you kind of like lost track of whatever it was that you were trying to do. So I kind of think that with that clutter, with that abundance of thoughts, so you might be overthinking a number of things, and perhaps that overthinking is preventing you from kind of resolving certain issues. So maybe there's just stuff circulating around time and time again, and you keep coming back to it, but you're not necessarily resolving it or letting go of it. So if that makes sense to you, it's just kind of the sense that you might need to start chipping away at the things that are occupying your mind, maybe the things that are weighing on you, maybe just being aware of what's kind of on your mind, what's taking up your attention and your energy. And if it's even something that you really necessarily have to spend your time on, or if it's just something that's kind of floating under the radar that you don't even need to focus on, and that might be taking your energy away from things that are more important. And so there's almost kind of a sense of just being able to give up whatever kind of thoughts, thought patterns, beliefs, areas of focus that aren't necessarily serving you. And I almost got the sense that like there's something that you're waiting for, like something that you feel is going to help you, something that you feel like you need, or maybe you feel like you're owed, that you've been waiting on. And perhaps that is what's keeping some of this stuff kind of unfinished, keeping those tabs open, so to speak. So you might be kind of exasperated, feeling like some of the stuff that's like constantly on your mind, that you can't just like let go of it or move past it because you're waiting on some kind of like external resolution or event or something to kind of allow you to close that out. And so you might need to just kind of assess like how much of your energy is tied up in your external circumstances or waiting for something, and maybe just do yourself the favor of finding a way to disconnect from it, or finding a way to kind of shut that down and move on from it, or just suspend it in such a way that like if it is something that's out of your control, it's not weighing on you constantly. So yeah, I would just say like if that resonates for you, just focusing on one thing at a time, and the things that are going to be most impactful, that's going to free up the most like space and energy, because the more that you're stuck in your head, the more difficult it is to really connect with your inner wisdom and what's really best for you, right? Because that mental energy can kind of overpower our more intuitive side. And the other thing that I will say is that when I was flipping through the cards, like shuffling, the serendipity card came out like twice, I think. And this is while I was preparing for the reading. So it wasn't your card for the month. but there might be some kind of connection to like serendipity, like serendipitous events, maybe like signs and synchronicities, things that seem like coincidences. So you might want to keep an eye out for things like that, because that might be kind of dropping like breadcrumbs for you in terms of helping you to connect with your inner guidance. That might be a way that you receive support, or maybe even like acknowledgement that you're on the right track. So if you are somebody who pays attention to those kinds of things, keep an eye out for anything that kind of resonates on that level this month, and like where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking when those things come up, and see if maybe it's trying to kind of guide you or open up some doors for you. So for your channeled messages, the first one that came through was fortified steel. And so it's kind of thinking about the fact that steel is already like very strong, right? It's already one of the strongest materials that we can work with. And then the idea of it being reinforced, right? So it's like, so this could be you like recognizing your own strength, that by nature you are strong, you're able to withstand, you're able to endure, and that it's kind of like the things that happen that are challenging, or that perhaps make you feel as though you're out of your element, or they feel like a test. It's recognizing that it's like each experience that you have that kind of puts that natural strength to the test. Once you work through it, that's like an additional fortification. So it's like rebar, right? And so it's maybe having that kind of perspective when you're dealing with difficult people, difficult situations. If you're feeling a little bit demoralized, it's remembering like, hey, I'm strong to begin with, and like I've gotten through all of these different types of things, and not only am I strong, but everything that I've overcome has made me stronger, and this is just another thing that I can conquer, right? So it's like finding that personal empowerment. Yeah, because it could be you, it could be your situation, and it's kind of like not being willing to give up your power or underestimate your strength in any given situation. Your second message was a melting pot. So it's kind of like a group or environment that's conducive to connection, collaboration, the idea that you've got an environment where there are like a number of different people, or people coming together with different skills, maybe different goals, and everybody just kind of coming into one place, offering whatever they have to offer, working together. And it's kind of like you can have a huge amount of diversity and like mindset or strengths or goals or whatever, and like still have everyone be able to kind of maintain their independence, maintain their sense of individuality, but also kind of be accepted and kind of melt into the group. So it's like everybody can work in harmony, but still maintain their kind of individual integrity. And it's just a place of, I guess, acceptance. So you might be included in something, and that might be something that's important to you in terms of a sense of community. So there can be like a lot of benefit in being in that kind of environment where everybody's all kind of mixed together, and you have the opportunity to connect with different personalities and to benefit from people's perspectives or strengths or whatever the case may be. And it's just important to recognize that in those types of environments, the most important thing is a willingness to connect with like mutual respect and acceptance of each other, and like being able to work through differences so that you can benefit from each other's strengths. The third channeled message that came through for you was ample resources. And so the sense that I got with this coming through is it's like being willing to understand that you have all of the resources that you need to get whatever it is done, or to learn whatever kind of lesson, or to achieve whatever kind of goal, whatever it is that you're focused on right now. And it's about recognizing that those resources are there for you to be channeled into whatever it is that you're trying to do or create or achieve. And the thing that really kind of limits your ability to take action can be fear, right? And it's also recognizing that just because we have the resources to get there, it doesn't necessarily mean our skills are up to par. So sometimes there's refining our process And sometimes it's just simply like not a time to take action. So there are times of taking action and seeing things come to fruition, and then there's time for waiting for the right opportunity. And so fear and anxiety can creep in if we're in a position that feels uncomfortable, or if we feel like we're not making headway. And that's really what kind of limits our ability to use those resources, because those resources end up, like, think about resources like time and energy. That's like your primary currency that you work with. And if that is channeled into worry or anxiety, or, second guessing yourself, then that energy is kind of just being leaked out, and it's not necessarily being put to good use, getting you closer to whatever it is that you're working toward. So it's kind of like, even if you have ample resources, there's still going to be a limit on what you can do each and every day. And so you kind of have to be aware and intentional of that energy, of those resources, and use them wisely, so that you can kind of take steady, consistent action, and you can sustain, like, those resources can sustain you. Because it's kind of like, you think even winning the lottery, like if you won the lottery, you would have ample resources in terms of money. But just because you have ample resources and there's a huge amount of opportunity that you could kind of connect with in terms of how to use that, it doesn't mean that you're going to, right? Because you could easily make decision to squander that money and be, back to your original level of wealth in no time at all. So it's not just about having the resources, it's what we think about the resources, it's how we use them, how we value them. So it's recognizing that it's your choice how you spend it, and that worrying yourself about it is just kind of not necessarily the best use of those resources. It might be depleting your resources instead of expanding them, if that makes sense. The next message that came through for you was as if by magic. So it's kind of like something happening unexpectedly that you might never anticipate happening. That might be just kind of like totally out of the blue. So it seems kind of magical. It seems maybe like a miracle, or very like serendipitous, right? So something happening, appearing, or taking shape unexpectedly, and it's something that's like, beneficial, auspicious, right? So it's like, oh, that was really lucky, or, I'm really fortunate, or so it could be connected to something that you really want, something that you're hoping to do, maybe something that you didn't think would be possible that ends up like working out in a really unexpected way. So anything that kind of stands out and grabs your attention, you might be connecting with something like that, or you might just be being encouraged to look for kind of like the magic in life and believe in like the unexpected, seemingly magical ways that things can happen, and that we're not necessarily limited by reason or our ideas of how things can or have to happen, because the universe can surprise us in helping kind of move things forward at any time, and you never know, right? And then your final channeled message was 7 sisters. So this could literally be 7 people, 7 sisters, 7 women, like something to do with a group setting, something to do with, relationships or a network or community. I don't know. I also did some research, and the 7 sisters is associated with like the Pleiades constellation, which is connected to like Greek mythology. So I don't know, you might be interested in or have some kind of connection to that. It might be worth reading up on. And then I think there's also like a chain of cliffs in England somewhere called the 7 Sisters. If you're interested in the constellation part of it, you might also want to look up Pleiadian star seeds. Like, that's kind of an out there spiritual thing, but that might be something. So yeah, I'm not sure how you might connect to that, if you do at all, but if you're interested, maybe do some research on the 7 Sisters and see what you come across, and if anything might resonate with you on a deeper level. So your oracle card for this month is Time for a Nap. You guys always seem to get messages of like rest, take a break, relax. And that very much is what this card is saying. So it's like, it's also really cute because there's this little like fox curled up in this moon. So yeah, honestly, like this is a pretty self-explanatory card, but in terms of time for a nap, it doesn't just mean a nap. So like, yeah, maybe you've been busy, maybe you've been burning the candle at both ends, you need some rest, maybe you've had an overactive mind and that has been keeping you from having like good quality sleep. You might need to just take a nap, but this is also like rest, and it's a time of inaction, right? So it's like, now is not necessarily the time to be busy, to be taking action, to be like focusing on your goals and your to-do lists and trying to be like as productive as possible. You're kind of being encouraged to lean into rest and lean into inaction, because it could very well be that the things that keep you busy, the things that keep you occupied, whether it is mentally, emotionally, or in a more like physical, tangible way, those things might not necessarily be helping you. So even if you're somebody who is very productive and gets a lot done, places a lot of emphasis and value on productivity, and that's a strong suit for you, it's recognizing that that productivity might not necessarily be helping you, and you might not necessarily be getting closer to your goal. And this is not to say that you shouldn't do anything, right? But it's embracing the idea of rest, embracing the idea of allowing yourself to just sit back and do nothing, or to sit back and watch a situation and see how things unfold, because you may be dealing with energies or situations where you're not necessarily in a position to move things forward or to affect things in the way that you're hoping to get the result that you're looking for. And so it's kind of recognizing that when we're in those situations, those periods of rest or waiting, or when we've hit kind of a roadblock or a point of resistance on our journey, it's recognizing that although we're kind of taught to just keep working hard, put your head down, power through, and make things happen, we don't always have that control, right? And so sometimes that actually gets us further in the hole, like energetically, physically, because we've come up against resistance and we're being told, okay, like you need to rest, you need to get a new perspective, you need to kind of save up your resources so that when things start moving forward, you're prepared. And instead, we're just like running full tilt against a brick wall, hoping that eventually we're going to push it over. And so in reality, we're not getting any further ahead. We're not affecting change. We're just exhausting ourselves, right? And so, if what's most important to you is kind of making progress, and that could be personal progress, it could be like at work or in relationships or toward a certain goal, it's recognizing that you kind of have to be able to gauge what you're up against. And when things are feeling resistant or slow moving, or it seems like you just can't affect change in the way that you would like to, it's not a sign that you're not working hard enough necessarily, or that you need to be doing more. It's a sign that, hey, maybe now is not the time for you to be taking action. Maybe what you really need to do is slow down. And it's recognizing that there's value in that. So it's kind of like the whole point of having vacation time or taking a vacation from work. And it's the idea that, if you are showing up every day, doing the same thing, exhausting yourself, like that gets to be kind of boring and monotonous, right? And it's like, it can wear you down. And sometimes the way to be an even more happy and effective and efficient and loyal worker is to have a break from that environment, right? To have some time for yourself, to rest, to disconnect, to recharge, to focus on yourself and what you need. And then it's like you kind of come back to whatever it is that you were doing with a new perspective, and with like a full inner well, so that you can kind of maintain your own needs and your own health, and not be putting yourself in a position where your job or your goals or whatever it is draining you and taking your energy away. So it's like sometimes we actually do our best work once we've had a rest, because we come back with a fresh new perspective, new motivation. We come back with maybe more resources, and it's like being willing to wait for that period of time and take some time to rest, acknowledging that things are not necessarily moving forward right now, means that when things are ready to move forward, we almost have more energy to kind of jump on top of that and roll with it. Whereas if we had been fighting and resisting and trying to force things to happen the entire time, when things are ready to move forward, we're going to be feeling really low. And when things are finally happening in the way that we are hoping, we're not necessarily going to be in a space physically, emotionally, mentally, to really be able to give it our best and make the most of it. And if it's for our highest good and it's something that we're invested in, then it's like, obviously we want to be able to make the most of our energy. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that, ample resources. So it might be like, maybe whatever this is for you, maybe you do have the resources, and because you have the resources and the ability to do it, you're like, I'm gonna make this happen now, or this needs to move forward. And it's recognizing that you don't need to be in a rush, because perhaps it's not about the external situation or whatever it is you're trying to create. Perhaps it's more about you and your energy and your relationship to yourself. And especially if you're somebody who is a leader, if you're constantly kind of taking care of other people or being there for other people, or, you know, you've got a lot of responsibility, it's recognizing that, you know, sometimes you need to give yourself a break, because you can't be going at, you know, 110% all the time, because that's inevitably going to wear you down. And so you deserve some time to kind of step back. And the other thing is, like I was saying, when we're really busy and heavily occupied and we've got a lot on our mind and we've got a lot that we're constantly kind of tied up in, and we don't take time necessarily to rest or to really kind of disconnect from all of that noise, it can be really difficult to hear our inner voice or to connect with our inner wisdom and to figure out like what is right for us, what we need, right? And so it's like, rest is not just for the sake of relaxation. It's also to kind of give yourself an environment that's conducive to connecting to yourself on a deeper level, like on you know, hearing your body, what is trying to tell you, what your feelings are trying to tell you, you know, what kind of needs are going unmet that need to be kind of tended to in order for you to be at your best. So it's also a period of reflection and figuring out, like, how do you take better care of yourself? How do you pour into yourself so that you are aware of and prioritizing yourself in a way that's keeping your cup full, so that you can take action toward the things that are important to you, but also so that you have, you know, those resources to share with others. So yeah. And the other thing that's beautiful about taking time to rest and reflect and connect with yourself and not being focused on moving forward is you can kind of detach. It's like taking a moment to detach from your goals and to detach from whatever it is that you're wanting to work toward or manifest, or whatever you've been focused on, whatever's been distracting you. And sometimes it's like that detachment that allows us to kind of, like I said, come back stronger, because sometimes our desire for something to happen or to go a certain way actually ends up blocking that from happening, right? Because if we're relying on it too heavily, it can throw us out of balance, because like we feel as though we need it in order to be happy, or, you know, whatever it is that we're looking to get from a certain situation. And because we're coming from a place of lack and need, it's not necessarily helping us. Like it can block us from getting there. So sometimes just taking that time to detach and seeing like, hey, you can be okay as you are right here, right now. There's no harm in having goals and wanting things for yourself and wanting to move forward. But it's like you are also whole right now, and you can be happy just as you are. And the happier that you are, and the more that you're able to give to yourself now, the more you will be in a position where you're open and ready to receive from a place of non-attachment, right? So it's like you're open to life getting better and to, you know, achieving your goals and to having the things that you want, but it's like you don't need them in order to be happy. So I really like that for you guys. And it's kind of like just about giving yourself permission to take a step back and to recognize, like, also, even if you're doing something that like would normally be restful, it's like, are you in your head or are you in the present moment? And what helps bring you into the present moment? Is there a person, or is there a specific, situation? Is there a hobby? Is there something that helps you kind of like get out of your head, or, get away from the to-do list, right? So your first card, I'm trying to pull less cards to see if I can get these readings a little bit shorter. Because if I can, I would really like to do like a mid-month or like late month check-in, like an additional card later on. But the readings have still been really long, so I don't know. It seems like no matter how many cards I pull, it's like there's still a lot of information to come through. So your first card for this month is the Star. And your second card is the Tower, and you've got the Four of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. The Star is clarified by the Queen of Cups, and then we'll clarify the Tower. Tower is clarified by the Empress. And we have the Five of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Okay, so the Five of Cups and the Four of Pentacles being at the bottom of the deck, that's the energy that's kind of like in the past, underlying or influencing this month. And it's really interesting because these are almost cards of like, I don't want to say poverty, but it could like a lack mindset, right? So Four of Pentacles can be feeling as though you don't have enough in a material sense. So that could be in terms of your career, status, your money, savings, material goods, your home, family life, like, investments, that kind of stuff. And the Five of Cups is feeling like you don't have enough emotionally, right? And so it can be very focused on the things that haven't worked out, the people, the places, the things, the experiences that have been disappointing, perhaps that you might consider a loss, or perhaps maybe not a safe investment, because there is a marriage here between like something to do with the physical reality, your physical like abundance, money, those kinds of more obvious resources, and then like your emotions, your emotional resources, your intuition, and then the search for or desire to connect with love and meaning, and like a deeper level of connection and fulfillment. And so I'm not sure how that might apply to you, but it's very interesting because the Four of Pentacles can be like being worried that either you don't have enough in a material sense, or perhaps your resources are not safe, or they need to be guarded. So it's kind of like it can be holding really tightly to what you have for fear that you're not going to get any more. And so it can be like being a little bit stingy. It can also be being very conservative with your money, with your most practical resources, because you're trying to protect yourself. But sometimes that can come from a place of fear where it's like, I don't want to spend anything. I don't want to invest anything because I already don't have enough, and I'm not willing to let go of it because I don't believe I'm going to get more. So it can be a lot of fear and like a lack mindset that is inspiring you. And the thing is, anything that you hold tightly to is what you're at risk of losing, right? You can only lose what you cling to. And so the more tightly you cling to what you have, the less space that you have to welcome in more. So it's kind of like it doesn't go hand in hand with believing in abundance. So if you don't believe in abundance, if you already think you don't have enough, but you kind of don't believe that abundance is available to you, then you're making the decision to cling to what you have, and you're not allowing yourself the opportunity to connect with abundance or to connect with more. You're not leaving a hand open to receive. And when you're clinging tightly, you're also not extending or giving or investing those resources. And so if you're not letting go of anything, nothing is coming back to you. And the Five of Cups can be feeling demoralized, feeling put down, maybe having some like disappointing emotions or sadness over like specific struggles, or maybe situations that seemed as though they were going to be fulfilling, or connections that seemed as though they were going to be promising that either didn't pan out, didn't turn out to be what you hoped they would be, or maybe ran their course, and focusing on the loss of those things instead of recognizing the opportunity to connect with new and potentially better things in front of you. So it's like you have to be willing to see that there is more and be willing to connect with it. So that could be something that maybe something that you are going through, or that you have gone through, and you're focused on trying to connect with more, trying to bring in more stability, more happiness. But it's kind of like getting over the ways that you block yourself by, working through those challenging previous situations, so that that's not tainting your future relationships or opportunities. And that kind of makes sense. If that applies to you, that would make sense, because your challenge this month is showing up as the Star and the Queen of Cups. So the Star is all about hope and inner strength. So it's kind of like, it takes inner strength and courage to withstand struggle and disappointment, and to kind of get through those situations where maybe things aren't easy, maybe the path isn't clear, maybe there is fear and anxiety, maybe you're healing a lack mindset, maybe you're healing from disappointments in the past, and it's kind of like you have to stay tethered to that. This is like fate and destiny, and trusting that things are working out, even if nothing is moving forward right now, or even if you can't see how this situation is benefiting you or taking you, toward the life that you're trying to manifest or connect with. So it's like, it almost makes me think of like, it's always darkest before the dawn. So it's like, we have to have that hope and that faith that the sun will rise again and that things will work out. And the thing is, like, that is something that we have to cultivate, and we have to connect to our inner strength in order to be able to maintain that hope, because it really is within us, right? So it's like in those periods of uncertainty where you could fall victim to, maybe these limiting energies, it's like, it's our inner strength that allows us to maintain hope, even if we're in a situation where we've kind of lost hope, or even if it's not obvious to us that hope is something, that things will pan out for us, that hope is even an option. And being here with the Queen of Cups is all about our emotions, how we connect to our emotions, experience them, how we experience the world through our emotions, and also like connecting to our intuition and our subconscious. And you can see she's sitting under the light of the full moon. So it's like she's willing to experience her emotions. She's willing to connect with them and to see what they have to tell her, right? And it's kind of like the things that her emotions bring up, it's kind of like dredging up so your emotions are markers for what's really going on, what you really need, whether it's like healing, whether it's, like past disappointments, our emotions just are kind of like a symptom that we experience, and it's a marker for something that needs to be healed or resolved or even just acknowledged. So it's kind of like bringing it up, and the light of the full moon kind of brings light to all of the dark areas, right? So it's like nothing can hide. Things are coming up to be seen and acknowledged. And the thing is that the more that you allow yourself to acknowledge the things that impact you emotionally, intuitively, so this can be like paying attention to your intuitive guidance and your inner wisdom, and trusting that the things that you feel drawn to, or the things that you feel strongly about, like those gut feelings, that there's a reason, and that that's valid, and that it's connected to something that's important to you, whether you can kind of logically realize or rectify that. And so it's like the more that you do this, and the more that you see what your emotions, what your intuition is trying to tell you, the more that you allow yourself to be guided by that, the more stuff that those emotions are connected to is dredged up, and the more you can kind of begin to release and trust yourself, right? So She trusts her ability to handle her emotions and to stay in balance and to use what those emotions and those intuitive experiences are trying to tell her to move forward in a direction that's going to help her, connect with love and joy and happiness. So it's kind of like being able to, I don't want to say emotional mastery because I don't think there's any such thing, but it's like being able to be empowered by your emotions and your intuition, even the challenging ones, and to kind of work through and release the things that are necessary to get yourself in balance. So that it could be like your emotions might be interfering with your ability to maintain hope, or perhaps on an emotional level, or like certain experiences or relationships. Maybe you're feeling a little bit hopeless, or maybe maybe you don't have that clarity. Maybe you have suppressed emotions that are waiting to be connected with, but this is showing up as a challenge for you. So I would just be hyper aware of any situation, maybe where you're waiting to see how things are going to pan out, whether you're unsure, if you've got some fear, if you have anxiety, maybe the ways that it's difficult for you to step back and rest, because perhaps this period of rest and inaction is to help you kind of delve into that more intuitive, emotional side of you, and to get yourself into a position where you can have maybe a little bit more peace and reconnect with hope, right? So it's like a very spiritual kind of energy. And this is also a card of healing. So perhaps you need to kind of just take a rest and focus on yourself and your inner world, get those types of things in order, because there might be some healing that needs to be done on an emotional level. And perhaps doing that healing is what's going to help you feel empowered to take inspired action when this time for rest is complete. And your recommended action and energy to connect with, to kind of help you work through and overcome this challenge or this block, however this is showing up for you, however that resonates, is the Tower. And that's really interesting because the Tower is actually it's a challenging energy. It can be a really huge shift or change, like a really big shake up, like something massive, right? So it could be something practical, like the loss of a job, or loss of home, or relationship, or finances, or something like that. So something that happens that impacts your life in kind of like a major way, and that you can't necessarily fix, you can't necessarily undo it. So it's like there's a major shift, a major change, and it requires you to almost like transform, right? So it shifts you and your situation in such a way that you have to be able to adapt. And this can also be like on a more spiritual or like internal level. It can be an awakening. So there might be something that happens where you come to this like major kind of realization, and now that you have this realization or this new perspective, it's like, well, you can't go back, right? It has changed you on some level, and now you're kind of responsible for figuring out like, well, if this is what I now know now, and this is true, then I'm responsible for moving forward with this knowledge and using it instead of trying to avoid it. So this is like a huge opportunity for transformation. So perhaps whatever it is that you find is particularly challenging for you, maybe whatever kind of roadblocks are coming up and how that is related to your end goal, maybe even how it's connected to your emotions and this whole like hope and healing energy. Maybe it's a transformation that's been waiting to happen that perhaps on some level you've been resisting. Maybe because on an emotional level it's challenging, or maybe you don't feel you have the time or resources, or maybe there's something that's keeping you from stepping into and embracing that energy. And it could just be fear or like discomfort, right? Like being in a comfort zone, because a shift like this, whether it's internal or whether it's external, it kind of requires us to level up and to become a new version of ourselves. And that can be really difficult, because even if we kind of have a new situation in front of us, it doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to like integrate that or integrate ourselves into it. So it's kind of like, it can be a feeling of being really out of your element or feeling completely underprepared. And there can be pain and there can be grief around that, right? But it's also recognizing that, like, yeah, this tower is being, struck down, and this, you're gonna have to rebuild. But the fact is that that is a perfect opportunity for transformation, because whatever it is that's been struck down, whatever it is that's changed, or whatever major shift has happened, it's destined for you. And even if it's something that is potentially not seen as beneficial, or it's damaging, or it's challenging, it's recognizing that had that not happened, you're kind of just staying in a place that isn't necessarily serving you, or isn't necessarily allowing you to level up and to become, this new version of yourself. So it's kind of recognizing that those really awful kind of situations, or the situations that feel really difficult, that we naturally want to resist, sometimes we will resist them until it comes to a tower moment where it's like, the universe has given us no choice but to just kind of buckle down and deal with it, because there's, I don't want to say it's in our best interest, but it's like, because there's an opportunity for us to connect with something bigger and better. And so if you have the opportunity to rebuild, there's the being transformed through this experience, and then having the opportunity to rebuild. And if you're going to rebuild, then you might as well build something that makes sense to you, that's important to you. And the more that you have that awareness of like what it is that you value, what brings you love and connection and happiness, what your intuition is calling you, and like kind of embracing the opportunity for healing, then you can kind of ensure that whatever you build in place of that tower that was struck down is going to be something that's fulfilling, right? So it could be the opportunity to kind of get a clean slate, a fresh start, or a new perspective on something, so that you can infuse more of yourself and what is most meaningful and important to you, so that when you get to that end goal, it's going to be something that you're going to be able to connect with on a deeper level. So I kind of like that. And the fact that it came up with the Empress is a card of like abundance. So this is an earth energy, kind of like Pentacles, but it's like, this is manifestation and creation in its most, like, I don't want to say basic form, maybe its most like natural form. So like in the physical world. So it's recognizing that you have the ability and the power to come up with an idea, to connect with inspiration, to conceptualize something, and to basically create and birth that into the world. So it's like, it could be family, it could be children, it could be an idea, it could be like a creative endeavor, a job, but this is a card of being like, it's like fertility, abundance, the power of creation, and recognizing that in the process of connecting with that ability to create and to allowing that process to move forward, that not only are you transformed by that process, but the people who are involved and who are kind of like in your area, and who are potentially, a part of whatever is being created or manifested, are transformed by that process. So it's recognizing that this act of creation, and this ability to create. So it's like, this would be whatever you're longing to create, whatever you're longing to connect with, whatever you're longing to manifest. It's recognizing that there's the opportunity for transformation on multiple levels, and it's really kind of important to be able to embrace that and allow yourself the opportunity to step into that energy. And so I really like it in combination with the Tower, because it's basically saying like, okay, something has been taken away, something has been lost, something has been changed in a way that can't be undone. And now you're in this new position where you've kind of got to start anew, or you've got to recuperate and figure out like what your next move is, so that you're setting yourself up for success, and you're allowing yourself to be strengthened and transformed by that situation, instead of kind of resigning yourself to sadness and disappointment indefinitely and kind of giving up hope, right? And so this is really encouraging because it basically says like, yeah, okay, something's been struck down and taken away and you have the opportunity to rebuild, but it's not just the opportunity to rebuild that you have the creative power to actually take action in such a way that you can manifest or create or bring into physical, tangible existence something that is going to be beneficial and transformative to you. And this is kind of like a maternal energy too. It's a Mother Earth type of energy. So it's kind of like perhaps whatever this is going to be beneficial to you, but it's also going to be beneficial to other people as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very interesting energy for you guys, Gemini. And like, it could very well have to do with family and children. If like that's something that you are focused on, if you already have a family, it could be kind of like embracing that role even further. There's so many ways that this energy can combine, but I'm gonna kind of leave it to you guys to determine how that makes the most sense for your situation. But yeah, this is a very strong, empowered energy, and it's kind of like the ability to transform and to create in your external environment something that's going to be beneficial and like nurturing for others. And this could be also like nurturing yourself too. Okay, so we've got your your affirmation cards. So your first affirmation is, I begin my day with love. And your second is, I show up for myself and the world. And so it's interesting that we've got love here, because we've got these cups, which is, it's all about love, self-love, your connection to yourself, your ability to kind of take care of yourself, honor yourself, fill your own cup, and then to be able to share that love with other people. And so perhaps like in terms of, this period of inaction where you're being asked to just kind of sit back and wait, to trust that things will kind of kickstart and move forward once you've taken the time to rest and reflect and, kind of tend to yourself on a deeper level. So perhaps like, beginning your day with love. This could also go hand in hand with gratitude, recognizing the love and the abundance that you have in your life, nurturing your love and connection to yourself, and just kind of trying to get into that energy, to be moved by that energy. And that might also kind of open up the doorway to connect more deeply with your emotions, your intuition, and whatever that's trying to tell you, because you can kind of make the most of this period of rest, right? And then I show up for myself in the world. So it's recognizing that, self-love, self-care, taking that time to rest, taking the time to reflect, figuring out what your needs are, doing the work to make sure that that's met, doing your healing, the things that are good for you. It's like filling up that well, showing up for yourself allows you to show up for other people and the world around you. And sometimes the best way that you can support other people is just by taking better care of yourself, right? So it's like we can tend to get caught up with other people and their lives, their feelings, their situations, the role that we play, how we can help and support them. Or perhaps we feel like they're not capable of doing the things that they need to do, so we try to take care of them for them, and then we end up not taking care of ourselves. And then it becomes kind of like this ironic situation where it's like we want people to be taken care of, and we don't think that they're capable of taking care of themselves, or we think that they need our help. So we step in and do it for them, but in doing it for them, we're neglecting ourselves and we're not taking care of ourselves. So we're actually setting an awful example. If we want people to realize that like they need to take care of themselves and their needs, then it's like the best way to get people to understand that is to model that ourselves. And so sometimes we end up projecting. So the need that we have to take care of ourselves and to rest and to, to connect with the things that are going to help us be more happy and balanced and connect with, our goals or the things that we're ultimately trying to manifest. It's like sometimes we're not willing to do those things for ourselves. And so we try to do it for other people instead. And then we tie up our energy outside of us and situations and other people. This may or may not apply to you, but this is just what's coming up for me when I see this. And so it's recognizing that sometimes the problem that we're trying to remedy is actually our own, and we just see our own kind of situation reflected to us in other people's circumstances. And so it's just like, oh, okay, like I can see what they need, so I'm going to make sure that they do it. And it's like, by you trying to do it for them, ultimately they don't benefit from it because they're not taking care of themselves. They're not learning to love themselves and to honor themselves. So it's like you can't do it for them, and then you spend that energy not on yourself, and you still, so everything kind of remains unresolved, right? Whereas if you were to take that time and energy and embrace this time for a nap kind of idea, you could take that energy, funnel it inwards, and you're going to benefit exponentially, especially if you're somebody who's used to kind of sending your resources outward. So it's recognizing that inner work and that time for rest, it's like you can still be very productive. You can get a lot done, and it can make a huge difference when you kind of tend to that inner landscape, because that ultimately is the starting point for anything that you do outside of that, anything that you do in the physical world, in your relationships. So it's like the more that you pour into yourself, you're going to benefit without a doubt, and that is going to have huge implications for the way that you show up in the world and the decisions that you make, and your ability to kind of manifest, I guess. So I'm going to get you one oracle card. Okay, this is interesting. This is from the Starseed Oracle, which is a little bit like extra spiritual in nature, so I like to get a different perspective, even if it's something that's kind of weird. Sometimes it opens your mind a little bit. So the card that you've got is Earth Pulsing, and it says, Pulse of the Mother, slow down, time in nature. So I'm just going to read directly from the book. Okay, so it says, a mysterious pulse is woven through all of life. The planet itself has a rhythm. You can see it in the seasons and the tides. In our world of artificial lighting, long working hours, and modern conveniences, it's easy for us to feel stuck and off kilter. It's time to reconnect with nature and surrender to the pulse of the earth. Earth pulsing is my favorite tool for surrendering to the rhythmic pulse of the mother and the entire universe. Download an earth pulsing meditation at www.starseedoracle.me. Today, many of us are disconnected from the land beneath us. Somewhere along the way, a severing happened, a moment when it became too painful to stay connected. We feel unsupported and as if we don't belong. We look to other people and the external world to fill the void of connection, holding, and belonging once given to us by the earth. Taking, clutching, conquering, longing for others to receive us fully as the mother once did, forgetting that she's still here, waiting for us to remember and activate the part of us that longs to receive her embrace. When you consciously connect with the earth, a veil is lifted and she opens and receives you more fully. You're able to drink from her sweet waters and release what no longer serves you. Stagnant energy falls away and you become connected to all things on the planet. And then there's an activation. So it says, place this card on the portal of your heart and whisper the following. I surrender to the pulse of the mother. May my heart beat in unison with her. Yeah, and so this is interesting. It's kind of like getting back to nature and recognizing that, like, yeah, there's kind of like a rhythmic, the rhythmic cycles of life and like seasons, and that's how we used to live our lives. It used to kind of dictate, what resources were available to us. There were times for, action and like planting and then harvest, and then there's a time to kind of like hunker down and just try to survive, right? And so it's kind of honoring that even though our modern society has really disconnected us from those natural cycles and rhythms, that they still impact us. We're still human. We're still existing here. And that is kind of on the most basic level a way that we can ground ourselves and kind of reconnect with our essence, right? So So time in nature is something that might be really beneficial for you, especially if you're relaxing. So perhaps you have like a hobby that you like to do outside, perhaps going on walks, being in nature, like trees, plants, animals, that kind of stuff might be a way to help you kind of just get into the moment, get out of your head, refocus on yourself, and recognize that you're still connected to all of this. There's all this abundance that's available to you. And it's like reconnecting with yourself and your inherent value, instead of kind of longing for your external circumstances to provide you with something that's going to make you feel whole, right? So it's like kind of getting back to nature, getting back to yourself. So that might be something that's beneficial for you this month, Gemini. And I also love it because the Empress is the Earth Mother. So this goes hand in hand here with your what you're being encouraged to do. So I'm going to leave your reading there, Gemini. I really like this for you. If you enjoyed this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube. And you can also leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that might enjoy this content, you can share my readings with them. Make sure that you go on over to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot and check out my other videos. And ensure not only that you're subscribed, but also that you're signed up for notifications. And that'll keep you up to date on new videos as they're posted. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure for you, Gemini. This is really interesting energy, but it seems like there is a lot of promise for you to just kind of take a step back, reconnect with yourself, and do some healing. And that's really going to help you kind of transform and move forward, I think, however that might make sense to you. So I am hoping this month is good to you. I'm very excited to see what comes up for you in August. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.